Good morning. It's another wonderful day in sunny eastern North Carolina, and today I'm going to be planting up in these raised beds, these first two raised beds that I've built so far, some potatoes. Now the danger of frost has largely passed for us. I believe we're supposed to get a minor cold snap, but it's not going to get below freezing, and so now is the time to start planting out the potatoes. I have two different varieties today. I have French Fingerling potatoes and German Butterball. I also have more potatoes that I will be planting out at a later date, but for now I'm starting with these two. So yes, I filled the raised beds, and well, let's just get on with it. So you've seen me do the raised beds before. If you haven't, go back and watch that video. And the first one I'm going to do is the French Fingerling potatoes, and I just have to check these spacing requirements. See, spacing 8 to 12 inches apart with 30 to 36 inches between rows. So that's what we're going to do. Now these potatoes I have had sitting inside in a fairly sunny spot, gets a lot of afternoon sun, and they've been chitting. So what that means is essentially let me grab a couple of potatoes here. Essentially starting to force the potatoes to grow, and hopefully you can see that right there. That's the beginning of the tomato plant. This little potato is called a seed potato. And when I plant it, this little bit right here is going to go basically upwards. Now this was part of a larger potato, and I have cut it off because the other part of this also had, I believe these are called eyes. Don't quote me on that. Again, I'm not an expert. But so I have a good one here. This part is dried over, which is good, so it'll prevent from disease and infection and stuff. And I'll stick these in the ground about 12 inches apart, and then, well, like I said, let's just get on with it. So as with most potatoes, I'm going to plant them about 2 to 3 inches down. And the soil is fairly loose, so I don't have to go digging too much. Just going to count where the soil a little maybe firmer or wetter. I would turn around and boop, there we go. Use a little shovel. All right, so that first row is done. And I say about 30 inches apart, but that's a lot. I'm going to cheat, I think. No, I better not. The reason you want to keep spacing between the rows is for two reasons. One, for these obviously seed potatoes will grow into many more potatoes. They need space to grow. And the second reason is you have to hill up your potatoes as they go. So now I've never grown, as disclosure, I've never grown potatoes in a raised bed before. I've always grown them in grow bags. So when you earth up in a grow bag, which I'll show you a little bit later, I actually have some potatoes in grow bags right now. You simply turn around and just add more soil to the grow bag. Here I will be using a hoe, and I will be basically taking from the center and earthing up around the plant. So, and this is for a couple of reasons. One, though potatoes are easy to grow, you have to be careful. If potatoes get exposed to the sun for a prolonged period of time, they turn green and they are highly poisonous. And never eat the foliage of a potato plant because it is poisonous. So potatoes themselves are delicious. We all eat them all the time. But like I said, just have to be careful with the keeping the potatoes from going green. Never eat a green potato. So we're going to say this is about 30 inches. I have two left over. I'm actually going to cheat, I believe. Can I cheat? No, I really can't cheat. I was thinking about doing a couple in the middle, but again, that's where I'm going to be earthing up from, so we're not going to do that. We will simply come over here to our next little bit. Now with these two little oddballs, I could, if I have extra grow bags, I could do an extra grow bag, but I'm not going to do that. So just stick them into the new bed and then move on with life. Now the German butterballs, slightly different. All right, they want these spaced a little further apart, 12 to 15 inches. So we'll do about 12 inches just because A, I have a lot, and B, I don't have a lot of bed. And then 30 to 36 inches between rows. So very good. Oh, drop that one in there. Now the German butterballs, these seed potatoes were, there we go. These seed potatoes were smaller, so I didn't actually cut any of them. I probably could have maybe a couple of them, but oops, let me go over here. The other thing I'm going to do is, now deer are not supposed to like potatoes, so that's a good news, but I'm going to, as I was saying, I'm going to put up the deer no-no. I'll hang maybe one or two of the deer no-nos on stakes at either end of the beds, and hopefully, again, that keeps the deers away. Okay, so I have a little bit more space in this bed. I might do something else in here, but overall, this bed is now planted up. Good to go. I will throw labels onto these beds so that I know what's planted where, because I will forget. And we're done. The first batch of potatoes is planted up. I have other potatoes still inside that I will then put into these trays to begin shitting up. And again, it's just a jump start, as it were. You can take a seed potato, stick it in the ground, just maybe take a little longer to grow. But if they shit up, then they just grow just a little bit faster. So it's sort of like a jump start in life. And yeah, I will give these beds a little water. We're supposed to get rain basically all day tomorrow, so I'm not going to drench the beds. And yeah, let me show you what I got going on with my bagged potatoes. Okay, so as you can see, I have a plethora of items here on the deck. I have a lemon tree and a citrus tree. Not citrus, I apologize. A orange tree. So I have an orange tree, a lemon tree. I have strawberries growing. I have several bare root plants that I got when I was sick. They stayed in their wrappers a little too long. I'm not sure if they'll live or not, but giving it a whirl. So I have boxwoods, green velvet boxwood, and I have privet hedging behind me here. Then yesterday I purchased the citronella plant, which is smells wonderful. It's supposed to keep the mosquitoes away. I want to look into propagating this because this was fairly expensive. $12, not the end of the world. But if I can propagate this, maybe take cuttings and grow more citronella plants from it, bonus. I have radishes growing. What are these? These are emerald green or emerald jewel, I apologize. Emerald jewel boxwood. Red Norland potatoes, which I'll show you the earthing up process in a second. Then I have my 4 rose bushes. If you haven't watched the rose bush video, go back, watch the rose bush video where I get these and I talk about temporarily putting them in these bags until the proper home can be, until they can go into their proper home. I have a incredible hydrangea that I received as a bare root, very small plant. That's now growing nicely. I may leave that in the pot that it's in for the season. Well, I'll have to watch it and see how it grows. Then I have some herbs. I have dill, and I have, oh dear Lord, the name escapes me. Rosemary. Dill, rosemary. I also then have more strawberries in bags, a russet potato in a bag, a couple of spearmints, and California garlic. So these are all up on the deck for a couple of reasons, and one of them being, again, is the vegetable garden isn't ready for them yet. As you can see, I basically filled 2 beds. I need to build more beds. I was hoping to get some tall metal beds to fill in. That's not happening anytime soon, probably due to COVID and other nonsensical drama in the world. But anyways, so I'll probably wind up building, I'm going to build more wood raised beds, because there's tomatoes to be planted out, there's beans to be planted out, there's peas to be planted out, there's cucumbers, I'm probably missing half a dozen items that I need to put into the raised beds. The herbs I want to put into raised beds, the mints are not going to go into a raised bed. And the reason the mints are not going to go into a raised bed is because they spread like wildfire. If you're going to do a mint in a raised bed, I've watched other YouTubers do it. You just basically have to monitor it, and they will take over the whole raised bed because of the way they grow. So I will more than likely grow the mints in a large pot and take cuttings as I need, as I want to use the mints. So because you can use mints in teas and garnishes on food and ice cream and so on and so forth. I don't know if you see it in the shot or not. There's a flowering pot over here. That is my wife's begonia. And then in the cold frame, I have tomato plants which need to be potted up. I have loofah that needs to be potted up. I have dahlias that need to be potted up. There was someone who asked a question a few weeks ago on one of my other videos about the cold frame. The average temperature inside the cold frame, I've been monitoring it, stays approximately 10 to 20 degrees warmer than the outside air with the lid closed. So if you're wondering, should you get a cold frame, it's not a bad idea to start off maybe right before the last frost some of your plants if you live in a northern climate. Again, I'm not an expert, but the other reason I got a cold frame was for those young tender plants that come from inside the garage in my seed starting station. They've never had to deal with wind and breeze, and that can affect the plants as well. So I put them in the cold frame. Even if I have the lid up, the 4 walls provide windbreak, as it were. They still move in the wind, but maybe don't get knocked over, or they don't get battered as much with the wind. So for instance, today it's a nice warm day out. I have the lid open, and again, there's very little breeze now. There may be later. And if this starts getting too windy, what I may wind up doing is just closing the lid altogether, again, to protect these young seedlings. So yeah, that's about what I've got going on today. Oh, I wanted to show you the earthing up of the grow bag. Okay, so I'm going to pot up or earth up the dark red Norland potatoes here. And simply what I'm going to do is just take some of this raised bed soil. You could use compost. You could use a potting soil. Essentially you want something that is going to be free draining, or that will drain well. And I'm just going to be dumping the dirt right into here. Probably to about just the bottom of the leaves here. And it's not going to hurt the plant any. In fact, if anything, it'll give it more space to grow. Now, I planted these, I want to say about a month ago. So what are we, end of March? So maybe the beginning of March. I will be harvesting these probably April, May, early June, I hope. So, and I'll bring you along for that as well. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so that you don't miss out on an exciting and gripping episode where I harvest potatoes. If you haven't tried growing potatoes, it's something that, and some of you who watch this channel are not gardeners per se. That's not your interest. You watch to see if I have a heart attack or how I build the garden. But if you've never grown potatoes before, I recommend it. It's not that intensive. So far as maintenance and care, don't have to do as long as you use the right soil. Again, like a raised bed soil that I'm using here, compost, good potting soil if you're growing in a bag. These should all work fine. All right, that should be good. And so essentially with the grow bag, and you may have seen it in the B-roll for the russet, start with probably about 6 to 8 inches of soil. Put your potatoes in about 2 inches deep, 2 to 3 inches deep. Once they start growing, you can just keep adding more soil to it as it goes along. And other than that, sit back and wait. The foliage will grow so large. You may see flowers appear. The foliage will then start to die back. And once that happens, that's about the time to then harvest your potatoes. And once you harvest your potatoes, there's lots of different things you can do with them. You can leave them outdoors on a couple of dry, clear days to harden the skins off. You can bring them in right away. You can slice them, dice them, cook them, fry them, bake them, depending upon what you have, what kind of potatoes you got. Again, these are dark red Norland. My wife had purchased some organic russet potatoes that one of them started developing a strong eye on. So I then planted that one up in a grow bag just as an experiment to see what would happen. And then last but not least, I have the French fingerlings that I started today and the German butterballs. There are more potatoes to come. So like I said, I'm going to start chitting them out today and probably plant them out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if I'm lucky, I will essentially have a succession of potatoes for the rest of the summer. And again, the nice thing with potatoes, if you store them in a cool, dry place, they can last you months and months and months. So you can then theoretically have potatoes going right up into the winter. That's about it for today. I'm going to, I'm going to go move on to the next projects. So there's lots to do around the garden, and I will catch you on the next one. See you later.